G'day, welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm David Richards.
And I'm Paul Luckett. Television has always been about big moments, but now those moments can be built for every viewer. For decades, brands told one story to millions. But in a world where every audience, every screen, and every moment is unique, that story can finally adapt, evolve, and respond in real time. Today's guest, Georgia Brammer, leads Innovid and Flashtalking across Asia Pacific, two pioneers now united to redefine how creativity and data come together on the biggest screen in the house.
And Innovid built its legacy powering connected TV, delivering and measuring ads across streaming platforms, broadcasters, and on-demand services. Flashtalking mastered the art of dynamic creative, turning data into personalised storytelling at scale. Now together, they're proving that television isn't about broadcasting louder, it's about connecting smarter. Because this isn't just about another broadcast battle, this time it's personal. Welcome to the show, Georgia. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on MTT.
That's great to have you on the show.
Excited to have you.
For those who might not know you, can you share a little bit about yourself and your journey into digital media technology?
Absolutely. So I've had quite an interesting journey. I probably would say I didn't intend on going into digital advertising. At uni, I was working in high fashion as well as working at Australia Associated Press. So kind of two very, very different roles. But at AAP, I kind of got a feel for technology and automation. I was distributing press releases globally. And then I applied for a job at Fairfax. And I believe we had a bit of a crossover there, David.
Yeah.
But I joined the ad operations team, and honestly, I had no idea what a CPM was, what an MREC was. I remember, growing up in the hills, I printed out all the instructions and I would study that like nobody's business. And then I was put in charge of actually rolling out digital to all of the regional papers that Fairfax owned at the time. So it was a real throw into the deep end role. But I quickly grew a love for the space of digital. But I did do the classic thing of moving to the motherland over to London. And I had a few different interviews lined up. And back then in like 2013, I think there was more of a gap between Australia and the UK, which was much more mature. So again, was thrown into a bit more of a deep end where that demand, an RTB style of buying was a new sort of thing for me compared to Australia, and even Nat Delpierre was starting that at Fairfax only just when I left. So I got a job at Flashtalking. Not gonna lie, it was located in Soho, so I was pretty excited
We
to work in
love
Soho,
Soho.
London.
Soho's so lovely.
Yeah, exactly. But I quickly again was thrown into a different side, going from like the publisher ad server world through to the advertiser ad server world. Um, Very different to these days. I was managing like homepage takeovers for PlayStation on AOL. So we'd spend like a whole week on one activation. And then naturally, as the industry progressed, we were looking at programmatic, different data signals that we could leverage. Instead of working with one creative, we're working with a million. And so I naturally progressed from more of the ad op side into more account management, where I could sort of help craft some of those strategies and help plan what tech pieces to leverage, how we can partner with their DMP, for instance. And then I got the opportunity to come back home, which the parents were very excited about, and came back to Sydney, where we were a team of about 4 back then, and Telstra was our founding client.
Wow.
As you said in the introduction, Flashtalking was very well known for DCO, and that's how we started out here. And then obviously as the ecosystem and industry has scaled, we've had the opportunity as well to open up offices. And as we onboard global brands like P&G, Adobe, we've had the opportunity to open Singapore, Japan. We've got people in India now. So we've become much more of a regional unit here at Flashtalking, now Innovid, as the two combine. And with that, I've been kept on my toes with all the technology developments. Like, even you guys would remember we used to build creative in Flash, right? Like Flash
Oh,
talking.
I
Um,
just want to say, I love Flash because I'm a graphic designer at heart as well. And look,
okay.
I think what was it? Just before Adobe bought Flash from Macromedia, I think it was such a big deal and everybody had to learn Flash and the animation that went behind that.
Yeah.
It was all vector-based
It's
animation. It was hard. And then we moved into this lovely world of having, Flash disappear. And I think Apple made the decision or somebody made the decision to go into HTML
Mhm.
for graphic rendering. So, and animation, it's to change, upheaved the whole industry again.
It was a big deal. Like
Yeah.
people who were used to gorgeous, like interactive build tools with timelines and what have you, were
Oh, it was
now having
great.
to code.
Yeah.
It was
Loved it.
definitely an interesting time. But yeah, all of those sort of updates and like ITP, what have you, all of those have kept us on our toes. Even the ways in which we measure. I know we acquired a multi-touch attribution platform. So going from like little old ad serving, deduping, last touch methodologies of measurement and having to learn like a whole new way of
Mm,
attribution
mm.
was really like just challenging, but it was also rewarding.
Yeah.
Something new that kept, I guess, my interest to be at Flash Talking now Innovid for 13 years.
Yeah, it's a long time, actually. I just want to take a sidestep because I think for those who might
Mm.
not be familiar with Flash Talking, you've touched on a couple of key points around dynamic creative. Just take us through the Flash Talking story for you, and obviously what the product is in a sort of, I suppose, in a top line level, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think Innovid and Flash Talking are quite similar insofar as we both started out as like a third-party ad server. So our role back when it was created was very much around keeping publishers honest in being able to be a third-party verification of the numbers, being able to bill. And then back then when rich media was such a huge piece for all of us, it was a way to like, break through the noise and have great attention, but without, necessarily the DCO element of it. So we really started out in that space, and it was also a case of we were measuring all channels from your paid search, even like organic natural search, through to the other more open web hosting capabilities. Our job was to unify and dedupe measurement in terms of reach and frequency, attribution, and then obviously with the publishers to be able to host those heavy creatives and take the weight off the publisher having to load that.
Mm.
So that's kind of where we started. So we were sort of had a lot of people come over from DFP, Double Click, all those kinds of Tango Zebra. The guy that hired me had come from Tango Zebra. So we very much started on like that basic ad server level. And naturally, we've had to up our game and solutions and sophistication. And it's very much become for both companies that have merged this year, it's very much now a very different ball game because the ecosystem is so much more sophisticated, so much more complicated, but in a way also more fragmented.
Mm.
So we are now in less of a position where we would necessarily be the old school, let's like do last touch based measurement. And it's more about how we can enable scale. So the orchestration element of like having a central platform to be able to distribute all of these channels and build millions of iterations of creative, and then how we can bridge that gap between creative and media. And I would say in that second aspect that it's twofold insofar as bridging that gap between creative and media is the relevant side, ensuring the right content is in front of the user and like the modern day
Mm.
DCO or dynamic creative. But it's also about the measurement side. So while we might not be the final reporting solution, our job is really to actually start unifying those different data sets because you'll have your first party, you'll have, siloed platform data. And how can we, as an independent ad server, and that's for both Innovid and Flash Talking, what has been our biggest distinction is we don't own any media. So we are in that unique position to help brands and agencies have a unified log file data set. I know you guys are both love tech and all of that, and log files is
What
sexy
gave you
term for
that
some of
idea?
us, but
Yeah.
I find it exciting. And a lot of the
Same.
sophisticated brands that we work with really value
Yeah.
getting their hands on that level of data.
Um, there's another crossover for both of us as well with my background with Innovid, some 15 years ago. What was it that Ocean Media had, Media Ocean, I knew I was going to do that, Media Ocean had as far as an interest after its acquisition of Flashtalking in 2021? What was the motivation to bring Innovid in and close the deal? I think it was February this year, February 2025, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I mean, when Flash Talking was acquired by Media Ocean, like I knew that obviously we were being acquired by someone, but when my president told me who was acquiring me, I think I said, "What, the Prisma company?" And it was a shock. Like
Yeah, cool.
you hear rumblings of, other tech platforms looking to buy us and what have you. But once sort of the dust settled, it really made sense in terms of our leadership's vision. And essentially, they want to give brands and agencies an independent infrastructure tool that allows them to go from planning through to optimization. And even if you include the Media Ocean suite of tools where they have a Prisma, they have Spectra in Australia. Agencies and brands are in there planning their media that can connect to the campaign manager tool. You then are able to build at scale, and we've got API automation to all of your leading DSPs and verification providers. And then we have amazing creative intelligence to be able to unify that. And so I think initially with the Flash Talking acquisition, it was really smart because we brought in the ad server as well as like the DCO capabilities. We also had a verification company called Protected, which leading companies use and is integrated in our ad server. But I think what is most exciting about bringing Innovid, like a long-term competitor of ours or Flash Talkings, is it's a really pivotal moment for agencies and brands. Like it's a much more distinct fork in the road in terms of which avenue brands and agencies want to go to. In terms of are you willing to go down the walled garden route and the monopoly route where you do have to compromise like ownership of your data and transparency and selection of your preferred ad tech partners, martech partners? Or do you want to be a little bit different and have infrastructure that's going to give you choice of who you work with and actually give you interoperability with your invested solutions? So for me, I think the acquisition makes a lot of sense. It makes the choices less, but it makes the choice to work with ourselves more powerful
Mm.
in terms of our key sort of tenets, which are innovation and independence.
Mm. Luckett, have you had much experience with Flash Talking? And obviously from an Innovid point of view, interactive video?
A long time ago, in the early days, I remember at News Corp, we started working with both companies for a lot of brands that started bringing across campaigns using those activity using dynamic creative or more interactive video for on the Innovid side. So I remember working with those guys quite a lot back then, and. Yeah, I mean it seems like a kind of a match made in heaven, the two between the two businesses, right? Like you've got specializing in dynamic creative on one side and then interactive video on the other, and you combine those two together, it seems like pretty good, especially with the focus moving into the CTV space as well. And then adding a attribution and measurement kind of factor to that as
Definitely.
well. It does create a bit of this like full package execution type thing. Is that kind of the thinking, especially with the CTV space? Because I know measurement and attribution is a big topic of conversation
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds, as you said. We've got on the flash talking side, we had much more of an omni-channel presence in terms of ad serving and management. But we also did have like I shouldn't say did, it's still now part of the solution, but I've trained myself to be Innovid now. We Flash Talking had their cookieless and household solution. So back in 2016, when I was in London, like remember the year of the mobile that like lasted about 5 years?
We've had this conversation with Ari, I think it was Ari Paparo. When is the year of the mobile? Have we had it? Is it
I
still coming?
know. Maybe it's like we're in the year of the TV now, but
Yeah.
we back then in the mobile space, like we already identified that challenge where we're responsible for doing attribution as the ad server. We couldn't align like even in-app and web on a single device, let alone the multitude of devices that any consumer has. So we developed a solution back in 2016. It was called F-Track, very original, obviously F and track and whatever. But that's really scaled now, and we're in beta, like to be able to use it for like creative remessaging. And if you think of like all of your product level retargeting, we can start to use cookieless cues for that, which is obviously critical given where the inventory is being bought on spaces like CTV, for instance.
So on the interactive video piece, what's the process now? Obviously, vast standards are moved away from VPaid. Is that your
Yes.
view? Okay.
Or have we moved away from VPaid? Have we actually done it?
I don't know. It's around there somewhere. It just keeps
Yeah,
popping
well,
up.
I mean, on the interactive piece, like most definitely. I mean, that was one piece that Innovid has brought to the table for us out here in APAC, and we have great partnerships with the likes of Paramount Plus, where our technology can fuel those interactive elements. And I suppose like there's so many ways in which we can capitalize on CTV, and one of them is the interactivity. Because I would imagine you guys would agree that compared to linear, which is much more of a sit back sort of style, like we get given the TV guide, right? Whereas with CTV, it's a much more lean in experience, not only being able to choose when and what you watch, but also being able to interact with content. And so that's a really fun way for us to create engagement with the brand and the content, but also retail media and commerce, as we know, is like increasing at a rapid rate in Australia and APAC. And so being able to use that shoppable element, or even, the case of even just being able to do QR codes and then bring up the content, not interrupt your TV content, but I can then obviously carry through and buy that pair of shoes that I don't need. So it's a really great way for us to sort of increase that experience with consumers, because one thing that I speak to a lot of people about it, and it's about like being more consumer centric, I think. Thinking less about the brand when we're doing marketing, but more about the consumer and what they want to see. And we have like thought leadership material that speaks to how consumers expect now personalized experiences. And all of us here would have experienced like creative fatigue, where every ad break we're seeing the same bloody ad or same brand, or it might not even be relevant to us. So we really need to ensure that we are bringing those personalized, enjoyable experiences to consumers on every screen. And CTV is one that I think we can really capitalize on, because it's a bit, well, particularly in US and Australia, they're big screens. Obviously, it's a little different in Asia, where it's predominantly at the moment smaller screens, although I did a
Are you
preso
finding
to
that
our
Asia is largely mobile devices? Is that what you're
yes,
seeing?
yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a stat though this morning actually, because I was taking our product team through India growth for us, and they are expecting a 25% increase in CTV households this year on year, and
Yeah.
their CTV ad spend has tripled in the last two
Yeah.
years.
Wow.
And apparently that's obviously due to CT, like connected TVs being more affordable in markets. So yeah, we have to wear
Mm.
many caps, as you would appreciate, across the region, but
Yeah.
the premise is still the same, right? Like it's an intimate moment, whether you're in someone's house or you're right in front of their face on the mobile.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. I'm keen to actually get both your thoughts on this. I talking a lot because I watch probably most of my streaming content on Prime Video these days.
Mhm.
To me, it's like the most value content platform that I get. But I pay for the ad free on Prime Video,
Mhm.
so I don't get ads on there. But when I was over in the US staying at a friend's place, they don't have the ad free. So, and I found when I watch YouTube on my actual TV, the ad experience there are so many more apps, and they seem to be so much more intrusive. Like they're just popping up at the wrong times, and it's very frustrating. Prime Video ads seem to be it's the same duration. It's like a minute and a half, 2 minutes worth of ads, but Prime Video seems to be I don't know. It's more of a traditional like video TV advertising
Mhm.
approach, and it seems less intrusive and it's more acceptable. Usually, we just like mute the ads and just sit there and talk for 2 minutes until it comes back on, and then we unmute, and that's kind of it. But yeah, curious to get your thoughts on kind of like what the overall ad experience is
I
on
think it makes
CTV right
sense.
now.
Mm.
I would agree it makes sense, right? Like, no offense to YouTube content, but like if you think of like the Prime Video content as well as like our local broadcasters, it does tend to be more premium content in terms of the
Mm,
types of shows we're getting access to. So I think people are probably willing to pay a bit more for that more traditional experience.
Mm.
And I mean, I feel like there's really good insights that marketers can play on in terms of there's quite clear ideas of audience segments based on what you're watching. You can be a lot more contextual. Like if you think of like the summer I turned pretty, it's probably not on your playlist, but I loved it.
No.
That
Sorry, I missed
that sort
what
of
was the title, Georgia? I'm going to write it down.
the summer I turned pretty.
Oh, right.
There will be some
On my list.
listeners that will be on my
Yeah,
side, but
great.
I don't imagine either of you have watched it.
I haven't seen it. I'm
Um,
familiar with the show though.
All right.
yeah.
You're one
So
head of
like
me.
you could make quite big assumptions
Yeah.
of what that consumer might want to see. Like I might want to be shown some gorgeous Hampton vibe style
Mm,
clothing
Mm.
or Gen Z who are watching it. Maybe I'm too old to watch it, but anyway, you can make some fairly good assumptions with that really high premium content. And I think there's also a lot of like anticipation, a bit like with White Lotus, like the way
mm.
that they dribble out those episodes for us, it creates demand and like I just feel like it makes sense that the ad experience would feel a little different. I don't know what you feel like, David.
Yeah, look, I've grown up with television right from the big early '70s, obviously, but I'm absolutely passionate about the television industry and how it's evolving. I can see where the linear concept of having ad breaks still has a need or requirement for content to be commercialized. But I think one of the great things that Innovid does is where we have like the content in three-quarters of the screen, and you'll have a banner that wraps around the image that we're watching to promote an advertiser's ad campaign, right? So I think there's a number of different ways of displaying ad campaigns from a more of a non-interruptive format, and I'm kind of curious to see what Innovid's doing in that space and how you're seeing the trends in market, if that kind of ad format is being adopted, or is it that we
Mhm.
want to see more of that linear style ad concept?
Yeah. So we definitely we have a lot of like canvas formats, and obviously it does depend on the supplier in terms of if we're allowed to do that. During like sporting events is a great example. You don't want to interrupt the match, but we can obviously be an element of overlay. But I think outside of like the overlay element, one trend that we're seeing a lot of is not just thinking about those types of formats as a brand initiative or a broad reach and focus initiative. We're kind of seeing it being used as a common denominator across all stages of the purchase funnel. And so what that means is we're seeing a lot of brands and advertisers starting to try and link things like product level information and cues into their creative. And I know, David, you mentioned VPaid. Like one of the luxuries of VPaid was having that interactive like flash overlay, which we don't have a lot of inventory for.
Mm.
A few years ago, we acquired a technology called Imposium. And that is a tool and tech that allows us to render millions of iterations of a single video in seconds. And what that means is like retailers who are already utilizing feed technology to fuel all of those common things like, like your display retargeting. That's not new, where we can show top trending products or the last products that you abandoned in your basket. We can actually start to bring those strategies now to your video. So that's where like every day, for instance, we can render a whole suite of different iterations with, say, top trending products within teen female category,
Mm.
and we can overlay those. And nobody's having to sit there and actually manually do that. And so that's really powerful, even in the space of live sports, for instance, like being able to re-render based on match results, etc., across video and still deliver it as fast as a flat file is
Let me pull you up on
really
that one, Georgia.
powerful.
Let me pull you up on that one. So how do you do that? Obviously from a a sports results concept, what are you listening to and how do you get access to that information to play the right ad? How does that work?
Yeah. So there's kind of two elements to it, and we did it with a big soft drink brand during the State of Origin. And we did this across display, social, and video. So we are agnostic to any data source. So we've spoken about brands' own product feeds. We can also access third-party feeds. So weather's obviously obvious, but sporting feeds is something that we've used for many brands globally. And we have the capability to call that API, up to every 15 seconds or what have you, and get things like the latest match results. Or if it was cricket, I'm going to really test my sports knowledge here. It's like, if somebody's hit a six or they got a wicket, we can actually look for those signals in an external feed. And then I shouldn't say our developers will code those insights to actually change the content within the ad.
Yep.
For social and display, it's a little easier because obviously they're in different codes, like displays in your JavaScript and your HTML5, so we can actually use that. Whereas with video, it's been trickier because we don't have that layer. So we actually have to go ahead and re-render. So once we get those signals, the Imposium technology will then re-render the video based on like a sports result. And then we will push that live. So there'll be schedules based on the back end to look at that sporting feed.
So we spoke to Tony Abrahams from AI Media, who do closed captioning for live television, and that includes sporting events. And the integration is an Australian listed company on the ASX. And what they've done is have an integration with the broadcaster to understand what the content is in a live television program. The example he used was Sunrise. To understand what the content is, but they would also have pre-mapped out what the concept or the context of that particular segment is. Now, would that be a similar integration? You mentioned API with the broadcaster. Is that something similar that you would have access to as far as how that content is played out and the information you're collecting?
Slightly different, but we would be mapping more to what the brand wants to say based on those anticipated events or results. So we're probably less syncing to content per se, rather using like the data from a live sporting feed. But for an alcohol brand, we actually layered an additional thing. So we had the sporting feed to actually show us that the Roosters was up on the Raiders, and we'd have like the score in the ad. But we could then also look at, because this was running on NRL.com and some of the Nine inventory, we could actually look at the context of the page the user was on to infer what team they might go for. So we could actually then make some presumptions. So if they're like, we saw Ricky Stewart in the URL, we could infer that they're interested in the Raiders, and therefore we might have the go up the Raiders. I'm not in copywriting, but go up the Raiders.
Yeah.
They're doing really well in this match kind of thing. So there is the ability to use multiple, I guess, trigger points in that decisioning. And that's where like having the local service with our team, like so many whiteboard sessions with the brands and agencies of like, what if this happens? We do this, but you know, that's all well and good to like plan those iterations, but we've had, I think what we try and educate is using DCO as like more of an always on capability. So you can be agile to events that we're not even expecting. Like I know there was a great campaign we ran when I was in London for Benadryl, and their prime minister at the time had a little bit of a unfortunate coughing attack. And the Brits wanted to have a bit of a joke about it. So next to the articles of her about her coughing incident, Benadryl was like, "Don't be caught out." So they were actually able to go into the ad and make that creative in minutes, push it live to a DSP within an hour. And that's a really fun way to play on those like unexpected moments. So I think that's a big piece when we're talking about DCO. Like, let's try and not just have it for one-off campaigns, but as best practice, be dynamic in the way we function.
Yeah, look, and like it will be testament to this. I'm an absolute fan of DCO. I can't see how this industry is going to move forward without it. And if it doesn't become the normal standard practice for delivering campaign assets to a page or to glasses, to a VR headset, you name it, that we haven't really gone into yet. I just don't see how a creative agency would be expected to deliver so many different versions of their creative to establish a meaningful connection in ad campaigns. Is that what you're seeing as well? And would you suggest that that could be a crystal ball for, maybe 5 years away from now?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I think when we caught up, David, I was saying how even the big media owners now are like reiterating to everyone the importance of content. I think it was Meta in their performance summit said 56% of the auction outcome is driven by the content or the creative. And then it was Google who was talking about the performance of the campaign in terms of conversions, said 70% of that success in conversions is driven by the creative. So if we're not capitalizing on all of that beautiful work in how we reach the user with then the right message, we're not doing ourselves, justice in actually capitalizing on that. So dynamic creative is a tool that needs to be used to actually reach that scale that's needed to ensure we're speaking to that user or consumer, we should say consumer, because they now expect it, right?
Mm. Yeah, I think you made the point earlier around like everybody having a kind of a reasonable expectation around personalization now. And like this has been the kind of the tug of war in the industry for a long time when it comes to the usage of data, right? Like and data privacy laws is that on the one hand, that data kind of informs a level of personalization that people have said that they want, but at the other hand, there's a need for more modern privacy laws. So I think it kind of it's interesting seeing how it's evolving as well a little bit. Like I wouldn't necessarily say this is dynamic creative, but I think it kind of lends into where the trend might go
Hmm.
with technology and AI, with Meta announcing what they're doing around being able to completely build assets and have those assets be entirely dynamic based on the audience. And then also Nine Ad Manager and what they're doing over there around being able to create full, video assets for advertising assets based on a brand's, well, based on the brand basically. And so these are interesting developments. I guess moving, kind of getting into the big topic right
Mm,
now of AI.
yeah.
How is that kind of changing? Well, I guess, and also the usage of data as well, and
Mhm.
how kind of first party data and privacy laws. And then, I'm also obviously we need to get into AI at some point and
Mhm.
how that's kind of affecting the
Well,
business.
yeah, on the AI front, I mean, that's like on everyone's RFIs that are coming now. It's sort of like, what are you guys doing in AI? And, it's not as if we haven't been using AI. Of all the people, you two would appreciate that. Like,
Mm.
we've been using AI for some time, right? But
Well,
I think,
it's all come down the path, right? I was at an
Mhm.
IAB AI marketing summit the other day, and we literally talked about and just putting some sense to it. Like we've been using large language models as a descriptor, and then I think when we started seeing ChatGPT come out and using AI, it was okay, cool. Well, we can't call it LLMs. It was okay. AI
Mhm.
became an easier grouping of, or I suppose, a way to group a whole stack of data technologies, really.
I have a theory, not to derail us, but I have a
No,
Oh,
theory
here we
that
go.
if I was thinking the other day of like what the earliest use case of AI is in the world, and I haven't gone too deep in the research, but I reckon video games would probably be it.
Oh,
Like, because if you
boo.
think back to like Doom and things
Yeah.
like that, Wolfenstein back in the days, the original games, like
mhm.
they were using AI. So
Mm. What was your first game, Paul?
I would have been Doom or Wolfenstein, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
Or
wow.
Sonic the
Yeah.
Hedgehog, actually, probably that
Oh
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
On the
you're
Sega
gonna
console.
die.
That was one of mine
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
My cousin bought me my first PlayStation and he got me the Spice Girls game. You could like
No.
you
That's
could
cool.
like choreograph their dance moves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've
interesting.
got my
Very
Sing
on brand.
I've got my PlayStation 2 with SingStar. I've got so many DVD ROMs or CD ROMs. Or I don't know what to do with them now.
But yeah, the AI thing, right, as just as you said, it's not new, but I think there's never been a more important time for us to be looking at how we can use it. Just, when we think about what CMOs are thinking at the moment, right? It's innovation. And also, there's a lot more scrutiny at the moment in terms of cost and time
Mm.
efficiencies. So, we're at a really pivotal moment where we need to be using it in a clever sense. I know a lot of brands speak to generative AI capabilities. I mean, we have built our own Gen AI capabilities, but speaking to some of the huge brands and global brands that we work with in this region, like they're not at that stage where they're comfortable to be generating complete ads
Mm.
from Gen AI. Just, that brand guidance and restriction, they want a bit of control, but there's ways in which we can use it. If we think of like the creative side, we have really focused and really honed in on something called creative intelligence. So,
And what is that?
when we do creative,
What's creative intelligence?
yes, well, this is where it's exciting. So, a lot of people, and just as an industry, we focus on performance very much so on the media side. Like, what is the DSP? What is the placement doing? What is it driving? And very little thought or time is spent on like what elements within a creative has propensity to drive performance. And that's due to, just general time and capability. Like coming from ops, I've been there where you have huge, long naming conventions and you have to deconcatenate them to pull out that it was the red car, it was the Holden. So this is where we are using AI to automatically label elements within any creative, right down to the size of the logo,
Mm.
whether it's left, right, if it's a picture of the family. Now, they can be generic, like CTA, they can be vertical specific. So, we've trained our algorithms to be auto driven, to be retail driven. But we also have the ability to train that algorithm and AI to assess brand specific. So if you're an auto brand, we can auto recognize the type of model in the car. So that's one element is just to have that whole new suite of metadata right down to individual creative elements. But what then is important is how we can use that to fuel optimization. And we have capabilities like with the trade desk, creative variant reporting, where that level of data is being synergized with the trade desk's audience insights so that they can then fuel back recommendations and optimizations. And we have auto optimization within that. But another way that we've used it, which I find most exciting, is translating insights that we would traditionally get in a number form. So if we have all of our versions and we know that there's version A, B, C, they're being targeted to your audiences 1, 2, 3. Traditionally, we've all been there where you pull out a report and it's going to be like a rate or a number of conversions or a ROI or something like that. But nobody is able to then give like human written insights that tell us what to do with that. We know that the CTR is higher for this creative within that segment, but what should we then go on to do with it apart from increased volume? And so we have started to utilize AI to be able to take those insights in connection with the audience segment and give written recommendations as to what you should go on to create. So for a Gen X segment, if you're a commerce provider or retailer, it might say, this user-generated video content that you served in this ad resonated really well with the Gen X or Gen Z, rather, probably more realistically. I would recommend obviously utilizing more UGC for this segment. And so we're actually like giving written instructions and suggestions, and it can generate more content for you. I feel like we're not yet brands aren't really ready to then put that live, but for creative strategy teams to get ideas based on true results that are linked to audience segments, that's a way that they're scaling like strategy optimizations and content optimizations. So that's sort of what I mean when we're talking about like creative intelligence, is really sort of focusing on the what we actually show to users and the granularity in which we can look at, but with ease
Yeah,
is probably the piece there.
that makes sense. Have you got a case study there that you've used when you're talking to prospective clients, or just to give clients an update on your capabilities that either locally or overseas that you feel is great for, obviously, for everybody watching the show today?
In terms of creative intelligence, or
Yeah,
just,
just
some of the
general
cool
capability. Yeah,
optimizations we've done.
yeah, general capability, like something that really stood out that you really thought, wow, that's amazing.
So I've got two use cases, both are local.
Mm,
I haven't checked with legal, so I won't say their names, but I'll
no,
give you like the hints.
okay.
So the first one, we work with a top four bank, and they use us for omni-channel creative and personalization, and their newest channel is out of home. They used a dynamic framework to be able to personalize language based on geo. So they had insight to know that suburbs such as Eastwood have a really high population of like Korean speakers. So taking like the generic bank out of home loans or credit cards ad, we were actually able to update the ads and geo-target Korean text and font to those particular out-of-home screens. So I think that was really great because I've always spoken about using like language insights. Like if you're a telco, we have a big Mandarin and Korean population in Australia. We can use those cues, but that's generally looking at the browser settings, right? Whereas this is actually using geo and demographic insights. So that was a really cool use case. I think the other one that I was really excited to see the team working on at the moment is a global alcohol beverage brand. So, like a lot of global brands, we all receive global assets. And either you have to send someone off to do new voiceovers, and it's, probably going to get one or two. And that's expensive, time consuming. Someone also isn't going to stand there and speak to every suburb in Australia about every BWS and Dan Murphy's that you're going to be selling that brand of alcohol in. So we have text to speech AI now, where we've actually gone through and selected some Aussie accents, but we can actually build a framework now where you can type the copy to say, go and buy George's rum at your local Surrey Hills Dan Murphy's or what have you. And our technology will overlay that onto the video asset. So that's like turning around, 1,000 versions and iterations in minutes, is really exciting to be able to have that power to scale a global asset, and do personalization with strategy of day of week, geo, etc. Like it's really exciting, really cool, to see brands be able to run with the AI and develop scale, as we said.
Well, okay, so I'm going to pop down to Dan Murphy and ask for some George's rum, was it?
Yeah,
Is it right?
it's really it's like petrol, but
Is it?
yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like a good Friday night in.
We're super excited to introduce Innovid Orchestrator, the first AI super agent for omnichannel advertising. We're bringing humans and AI agents together so that marketers can conduct a symphony across channels to reach their most valuable customers.
AI is not a matter of if, it's a matter of how and when, and we will help you solve that.
Georgia, I want to let's have a look into a little bit more about your leadership style, because the conversations that I've had with you have just been, well, I want to work for you kind of thing. You just got such a lovely, well-balanced approach to dealing with people. No, you don't need one. That's all. I do it for free. So you've got this lovely approach to working with people, and your ethic around bringing people along it really comes through, and people that I've spoken to really love you as well. So what is that, and how do you inspire people to share that with your journey in your leadership style, but also how do you inspire people to follow suit?
I think, well, first of all, I think there's an element of authenticity. I really speak to authenticity a lot. Like, I am very open with my team, not in a way that makes them nervous, hopefully, but I think it's really important to be honest with them in terms of your vision of like where you feel this is headed and getting their feedback. But also, I think it's important to showcase that you don't have all the answers, and sometimes you need to collaborate. Like only yesterday, I was collaborating with like two of my gents in the team. I was presenting to our global product team, trying to get them to invest in some of the extensions of US products out here. And I had a moment of doubt of like, why am I trying this? Like, that kind of thing. And being authentic and honest with them, I think it's really great to bring them to the table and be able to collaborate with me on that conversation with global. But again, I think it's reassurance to them that it's not expected them to be like perfect all the time. And I think you also have to lead by example of like, you've got to be curious. You've got to like, we do have to work hard, like to be successful, and constantly having that curiosity, I think is really important and has been a big part of my sort of way of sort of developing in my role. Like I said to I don't know how it resonated with product guys, but I quoted a Kardashian on the call this morning that Kris Jenner,
the first
says,
quote, yep.
Like Kris Jenner says, like, if someone says no, ask someone else. So I was saying to them, I'd spoken to engineering, I got a no, so here I am at products, asking again. So you've got to have that like tenaciousness to like keep hunting down and finding. And then I hope I can swear on here, but just generally trying not to be a dickhead, I think is a really big piece of advice for like people coming up in the industry. Like the rate of change, the M&As, like you got to be like help each other out. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about, particularly here in Australia, like our industry, like we generally do have each other's backs, like that we've had a lot of friends, right, who've been made redundant and what have you. And I see no shortage of people taking time out of their day to help each other. So I think that is a big philosophy of mine is to think beyond yourself and yeah, have each other's backs in that general sentiment.
Luckett, I think that's your philosophy as well with your management style. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think Georgie, your journey is one that's definitely especially in Flash Talking is very respectful and inspiring. I remember it kind of reminds me of back in the day when I worked in Woolies, and you'd see the regional managers who started their careers on the checkouts 20 years ago or something. It's like especially in an age where people are changing jobs every 2 years or companies every 2 years, and to see someone who's started on kind of the front lines and risen up to the level that you have, I think that's inspiring, and especially for women as well in the tech side of the tech industry. Is that
Mhm.
something that you feel as a leader and feel proud of?
Totally. Like I think I am, and I must say I have been incredibly fortunate. I've actually always had like male managers, but they have been my biggest advocates and allies. But I'm particularly proud, like I was thinking the other day, I think I was doing like a survey for gay at IAB about, makeup of our business. And we are probably 75% in APAC females at a tech company. Our ops team is 90% female. Our solutions engineering team is 50% female. And that's something that I'm really proud of,
Mm,
like that women just have this like equal passion for tech.
mm,
I know sometimes it's not as like sexy and fun and we're talking log files and APIs and what have you, but I think tech is just like a common denominator of like many industries and roles now. So it's really great to see that women are loving it and diving into sort of the coding and developing side and pushing the boundaries of like what we do and how we achieve it. And I think in our region, we've got some amazing female leaders like agency, brand, and tech. So we're really fortunate. But yeah, I'm very proud that I've ended up in the role coming from ad ops. Little did I know when I was learning like what a 300 by 250 and POS one was that I would be
Oh dear.
here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm
Mm.
sure it's going to get wilder, guys. It's like the rate
oh
of
yeah.
development increases. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. And I think it's important to remember
I,
at
I
the end of the day, like we've got to have fun with it, right?
You're absolutely right. And I hear this said a lot that it's not brain surgery. There's no one going to die. But I like the idea that we create a space where people can make mistakes. And I think as a
Hmm.
leadership role, your role is to, and this reflecting on myself, is to know enough that when you've got somebody working for you and with you, that you can guide them with I suppose, a parameter of space for them to operate in. And they need to need to feel comfortable to come and talk to you, right? If they've got a
Hmm.
question, feel free to come and ask me the question. If they don't, I think often we'll see those people make mistakes and things happen. And I think that's if you start having closed door scenarios, that's people start second guessing themselves, which isn't great.
Hmm.
Look, George, I think there's been a lot that we've covered off in today.
I
I
know.
want
We could
to.
go on forever,
We
but
could, and you know
we
what?
probably got to go and have a beer soon.
Yeah,
But
yeah, well, yeah, it is close to that time. So I just look, we've been talking about personalisation in obviously what DCO does, dynamic creative optimization, and then obviously with interactive formats with Innovid. In your words, what does it's personal really mean for the future of advertising in your world?
I think it's capitalizing on the wealth of data that we have access to and ensuring that we are consumer centric. So we have so much data that we have to activate on. We need to ensure that we are doing it due justice by actually showcasing content that matches that data. And then I think brands, if we think of like them as themselves, they are always trying to address the consumer. So the advertising needs to be consumer centric insofar as they're enjoying that experience. And I think the way to ensure that they're enjoying that experience and it's not a hindrance is ensuring that it's personal. And we capitalize on those intimate moments that we spoke about before in terms of being in someone's family home or being with them in bed on their mobile as they doom scroll. So I think that's what it means to be personal for us and what we should capitalize on going forward.
I love that. Yeah, Georgia, thank you so much for the chance to catch up with you today and share those insights. Definitely would love to have you back on the show to give us an update on what's happening in the Innovid /free.
Absolutely, love to
there
come
we go.
back.
Innovid /Flashtalking. It's been a big day. Yeah, it's been wonderful. And congratulations on your role here as General Manager for APAC for the business. And it's great to have you back from the UK. So, said this to Tess O'Brien when we had a catch up with her regarding Free Will. It's just great to see local talent go overseas and bring that information and resource back to us to help us evolve this market, which is just a fantastic space to play in. I love this country for what we do. You must feel the same.
Exactly. And congrats on the podcast. It's great.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching today. We will catch up with you next time on Media Tech Talk. Please keep tabs on our LinkedIn and YouTube pages for our guests. We will look forward to seeing you next time, and have a good afternoon or a good day or a good morning, depending on where you are across the globe.
I'm Pamela Slay, president of Boltive. Have you ever seen an ad claiming a celebrity has been arrested for tax fraud or a cryptocurrency get-rich-quick scam using a celebrity's likeness? We've all seen these types of ads. Join me as we uncover how Boltive is helping protect publishers and you from scams and impersonation ads spreading across the web in real time. And we'll also take a look at what threats are coming as these attacks continue to evolve. Join me in the conversation that's inspiring media minds. That's next on Media Tech Talk.